Princess Alara of Lyria sat in her high tower, staring at the silver horizon of her planet. The sky shimmered with colors that no human could imagine, blues that whispered, purples that glowed, and streaks of gold that danced across the clouds. From her window, she could see the city below, bustling with Lyrian citizens moving gracefully through their floating streets. Lyria was a kingdom of beauty, intelligence, and advanced technology. Every building floated or glimmered, every path led to knowledge or art. Yet, for all its wonders, Alara felt trapped within a prison of her own making. Her heart, she knew, had walls. Tall, strong walls that no one, not even her closest advisors, could climb. She had built them carefully over the years. Memories of past betrayals and disappointments whispered warnings. Do not trust. Do not love. Protect yourself. The princess obeyed, though sometimes, late at night, when the stars reflected in her silver hair, she wondered if she would ever feel free. Alara's life was full of rules. She spoke with her ministers twice daily, attended meetings with the Council of Elders, and learned new skills in the Royal Library. Humans were a new presence on Lyria, strange, unpredictable, and often looked at with curiosity or suspicion. She had met several humans before. Some were brave and kind, but others had caused problems. Alara kept them at a distance. She did not allow herself to get close. But today was different. The palace had received a new delegation from Earth, a human colony that had recently begun trading with Lyria. Among them was Captain Kale, a human soldier assigned as the liaison to the royal family. He was tall, strong, and calm, with eyes that seemed to understand more than words could say. From the moment he entered the Grand Hall, Alara noticed him not because he was human, but because he moved with quiet respect. He bowed politely, avoided arrogance, and yet his confidence was clear. The princess's first thought was that he was dangerous. Humans had the power to charm, to influence, to break even the strongest hearts. But she also felt something else, something unfamiliar, curiosity. The first meeting took place in the Hall of Crystals, a room large enough to hold 1,000 people, with walls that reflected light like diamonds. The council members gathered around a long table, discussing trade agreements, security protocols, and new technology exchanges. Alara sat at the head of the table, her posture perfect, her face calm. Kale stood near the human delegation, silently observing, occasionally taking notes. Alara, said Minister Thorin, her advisor, Captain Kale is here to ensure smooth communication with the humans. We should be welcoming, though cautious. Alara nodded, though her mind remained guarded. We will observe first, she said softly. Trust must be earned. Kale's attention never left her, and he noticed how her eyes scanned the room, alert, as if searching for danger. He respected her vigilance. Humans often underestimated Lyria, but this princess was sharp, intelligent, and wise beyond her years. After the council meeting, Alara retreated to her private garden, a space floating high above the city, filled with plants that glowed gently in the dim sunlight. She often came here when she needed to think. The garden was her refuge, a place where she could feel some freedom. Today, she noticed a human watching from a distant scale. He bowed, not to the full height of his body, but just enough to show respect. Princess Alara, he said, his voice calm, I hope I am not intruding. I simply wish to observe the garden. Your flowers are remarkable. Alara's walls stirred. She did not allow compliments easily. The garden is for thinking, Captain, not for admiration, she replied, keeping her tone firm but not harsh. Kale smiled faintly, not with arrogance, but with sincerity. I understand. I will not disturb your thoughts. I only wish to learn. Something about his words caught Alara off guard. They were honest, without hidden motives. That was rare in her world. Many people, even advisors, spoke to her with the intention of gaining favor or control. Kale did not. Days passed, and Kale continued his quiet visits. He did not push himself into her life. He helped where he could, guided the human delegation with care, and occasionally offered knowledge of Earth technology that could benefit Lyria. Alara observed him carefully, analyzing his actions. Slowly, she realized that he was different. Humans could be chaotic, but Kale was steady. He did not demand anything, yet he gave much. One evening, during a rare sunset on Lyria, Kale approached her again in the garden. The twin suns dipped low, casting long shadows across the floating plants. Alara's heart, which she thought was stone, felt a strange warmth. She did not look at him, but she sensed his presence. "Princess," Kale said softly, "I know you have reasons to keep distance from humans. I do not wish to change that, unless you allow me to." Alara felt a shiver run through her. Her walls had been built to last, and yet here was a human speaking with care, acknowledging her fear without trying to break her. She did not answer immediately. Instead, she walked among her glowing flowers, letting the silence stretch. Finally, she spoke. "I do not know if humans can be trusted. They are unpredictable. Some are kind, yes, but some are dangerous." Kale nodded. "I understand. All I ask is a chance to show that not all humans are the same. And I promise, I will not ask more than you are willing to give." Alara turned to face him. His eyes were steady, patient, and honest. For a moment, she saw not a human, but a person of being capable of courage, loyalty, and respect. And for the first time in many years, she wondered if trust could exist beyond fear. That night, Alara could not sleep. She wandered the halls of her palace, passing statues of her ancestors, mirrors that reflected her careful composure, and windows that opened to the infinite sky. The walls she had built felt heavier than usual. Each memory of hurt, each fear of betrayal, added weight to the barriers she had constructed. And yet, a small part of her heart, the part she rarely let anyone see, quivered. Perhaps, she thought, walls could be lowered. Perhaps some humans were worth the risk. The next day, a sudden alert shook the palace. The sensors detected a minor breach in the outer city, caused by malfunctioning drones. While it was not dangerous to the palace itself, it was enough to cause panic among the citizens. Kale acted quickly, coordinating with Lyrian security to manage the situation. He moved calmly, decisively, and without hesitation. Alara watched from above. She saw how humans and Lyrians worked together, each respecting the other's skill. Kale did not act for glory. He acted for protection, for the lives of those in danger. And something inside Alara stirred again. By the time the breach was contained, she knew one thing: her world had shifted slightly. Kale, a human, had proven not just his bravery, but also his integrity. He had acted without expectation, without pressure, and without arrogance. That evening, she returned to her garden once more. Kale waited, as if he knew she would come. She did not speak at first. She walked among the glowing flowers, letting the warmth of the garden calm her mind. "Princess Alara," Kale said, finally breaking the silence, "may I walk with you?" She hesitated, then nodded. They walked side by side, not speaking at first. The twin suns were gone now, leaving the sky dotted with stars. Alara looked at the lights above and realized she had not felt this peaceful in a very long time. "You are patient," she said finally, almost in a whisper. Kale smiled faintly. "I have learned that patience is needed when dealing with someone important, especially someone who has walls around her heart." Alara felt a twinge of surprise. She had thought no one could understand her, yet here was a human, standing beside her, seeing her fears without judgment. As the stars twinkled above, Alara realized that walls, no matter how strong, could eventually be tested not by force, but by trust. And for the first time, she allowed herself a tiny hope that perhaps, one day, a human could walk past them. And so, the first cracks appeared. Not large, not sudden, but small and almost invisible. Alara did not know what would come next, but she felt something she had not felt in years, the beginning of possibility. The princess had built walls around her heart, but now, for the first time, a human soldier had arrived not to conquer, not to deceive, but simply to be, and that made all the difference. The morning sun of Lyria rose over the floating city, bathing the streets in soft golden light. Princess Alara stood on her balcony, watching the citizens move gracefully through the streets below. Even in the hustle of the city, there was harmony. People spoke politely, robots assisted seamlessly, and drones delivered packages with silent efficiency. Yet, despite the perfection of her kingdom, Alara felt a subtle unease. Captain Kale had not left her mind. His presence in the palace was becoming unavoidable, not by force but by circumstance. Every human delegation meeting, every joint discussion of Lyria's resources brought him closer. And Alara, despite herself, noticed the difference in how she regarded him compared to others. He was human, yes, but unlike the human she had encountered before. Kale was cautious, respectful, and observant. He never overstepped boundaries, but he was always present when needed. That morning, Kale approached her quietly in the palace gardens. The soft wind carried the scent of glowing flowers and fresh dew. He had a small device in his hands, something he had been developing with his team of engineers. "Princess," Kale said, bowing slightly, "I thought you might like to see this. It is a small projectile way to improve energy efficiency in the gardens, while preserving the natural glow of the plants." Alara looked at him, surprised. Few humans cared enough to consider such small details. Most were focused on trade, politics, or technology for the sake of power. Yet Kale's device had subtle elegance, balancing function, and beauty. "It is thoughtful," Alara admitted, trying to keep her voice calm. "But why do you concern yourself with such small matters?" Kale smiled faintly. "Because small matters often matter the most. A garden is not just plants. It is peace, it is life, it is balance. I thought it should reflect the same respect I feel for your kingdom." Alara blinked. The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. She had expected arrogance, or manipulation, or even boredom. Instead, she found patience and care. For a moment, she wondered if humans could be trusted. Not all humans, but perhaps him. "Very well," she said finally, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Show me how it works." Kale demonstrated the device, explaining in simple terms how it captured sunlight and redistributed energy to the glowing plants. Alara listened carefully, asking questions, and even offering suggestions to improve efficiency. As they worked together, she noticed how natural it felt to collaborate. There was no pretense, no hidden motives, only shared curiosity and respect. Over the next few days, Kale continued these small visits. He did not speak unnecessarily, nor did he demand attention. He brought books about human technology, shared simple lessons about Earth customs, and occasionally assisted in solving palace logistics. Each interaction chipped at the careful walls Alara had built. She remained cautious, but slowly, she allowed herself small moments of trust. One evening, as the twin suns set over Lyria, painting the sky with orange and purple streaks, Kale joined Alara on the balcony. The city below was alive with glowing lights and soft humming energy lines. Yet the two stood in quiet reflection. "Princess," Kale said softly, "do you ever wonder what it would be like if humans and Lyrians trusted each other fully?" Alara frowned slightly. "It is a pleasant thought," she admitted, "but trust is dangerous. People have betrayed me before. Even in my own kingdom, there are those who seek power at the cost of others." Kale nodded. "I understand. But sometimes, trust is the only way to grow stronger. Not for weakness, but for strength. You do not need to let your guard down completely, but perhaps let small cracks appear, only enough to let in hope." Alara turned to him, startled. His words were gentle but meaningful. No one had spoken to her like this in years. She did not answer immediately, only letting her gaze wander to the city below. Feeling the wind on her face and hearing the soft hum of the palace around her, days later, a small crisis arose. A malfunction in the city's transport system caused several floating platforms to lose balance. The people aboard were safe, but panic began to spread. Alara watched from her tower as Kale and the human delegation worked calmly to stabilize the platforms, guiding Lyrian engineers and ensuring the citizens' safety. Her heart, which had long been cautious and fearful, felt something unfamiliar, admiration, and perhaps even relief. She realized that Kel's courage was not loud or reckless, but steady and reliable. He did not seek recognition or reward. He acted because it was right. That evening, Alara called Kale to the palace gardens. She rarely invited him to private spaces, but today she wanted to see his perspective firsthand. "You handle situations with patience," she said as they walked among glowing flowers. "It is admirable. Many humans I have met are loud, impulsive. You are not." Kale glanced at her, smiling faintly. "I try my best, but you are wise to observe before trusting. That is why I respect your boundaries." Alara hesitated. No one had ever acknowledged her caution as a strength rather than a flaw. She felt a subtle warmth inside her chest, a quiet acknowledgement that perhaps not all humans were threats. In the following weeks, Kale's presence became less formal and more personal. He learned the names of her favorite plants, asked about her studies, and occasionally shared simple stories about Earth. Alara, who had long avoided personal connections, found herself laughing softly at his quiet humor. She did not admit it aloud, but each laugh, each conversation, chipped away at the careful barriers around her heart. One day, the palace received news of a threat outside the city, a rogue drone network malfunctioning and causing disturbances in nearby villages. While not immediately dangerous to the palace, it posed a risk to citizens. Alara watched as Kale organized teams of humans and Lyrians to resolve the problem. He coordinated without arrogance, listened to suggestions, and acted decisively when needed. For the first time, Alara felt a mix of emotions she could not easily categorize: respect, trust, and something more personal. She realized that humans, or at least this human, could be allies in more than politics. They could be partners, capable of courage and integrity. That night, she stood alone in the garden, gazing at the twin moons of Lyria. The stars reflected in her silver hair as she thought about Kale. Her walls, built to protect her from pain, seemed less rigid than before. Small cracks had appeared, just enough to let in light, hope, and a faint possibility of connection. Kale, she realized, was not demanding her heart. He was simply offering a hand, a chance, a present she could choose to accept. And for the first time in many years, she wondered if she could carefully, slowly allow herself to trust him. The days that followed were filled with quiet moments. Kale would help with palace routines, share knowledge, and walk with her through the gardens. Alara began to notice how naturally his presence eased her mind. She did not have to be constantly alert, constantly guarded. And yet, she remained careful, aware that trust was earned, not given lightly. One evening, as the twin suns set and the city lights began to glow, Alara finally spoke. "Captain Kale, I am not used to letting people close. Not easily, but I appreciate your patience. Your respect." Kale nodded, his eyes steady and calm. "I understand, Princess, and I will continue to respect your pace. Trust, once built, must never be rushed." Alara allowed herself a small smile. It was genuine, warm, and unguarded, a rare gift from her carefully protected heart. She realized that cracks in walls did not mean weakness. They could mean strength, courage, and the possibility of something greater than fear. And so, for the first time, Alara felt a subtle shift in her world. Her heart, long guarded and alone, had begun to respond to a human who did not demand her trust, but simply earned it slowly, steadily, and with care. The princess had built walls around her heart, but Kale, without force or demand, had begun to open the first doors, showing her that trust, and perhaps even love, could exist beyond fear. The future was uncertain. The humans of Lyria were still outsiders in many ways. The dangers of the galaxy were still real. Yet, for the first time, Alara felt hope. A small, delicate hope, like a glowing flower in her garden, fragile, yet persistent. And she wondered, quietly, if perhaps her heart could survive and even flourish, with trust by her side. The twin suns of Lyria had barely risen when Princess Alara received alarming news. A mysterious malfunction had occurred in the palace defense systems. Sensors that usually monitored the skies had detected unauthorized energy signatures near the city's borders. The Council of Elders had convened immediately, and the palace was tense. Alara's pulse quickened, not just because of duty, but because she sensed that this event could challenge more than just her kingdom's security. Captain Kale stood calmly among the council members, his posture firm, his expression alert. He had already analyzed the situation in minutes and began issuing instructions to both human and Lyrian technicians. His quiet confidence reassured the room, but Alara noticed something deeper. He was acting not for recognition, but for the safety of all. The princess followed Kale into the controlled chamber, a vast space filled with glowing holographic screens and floating control panels. She had been trained to understand technology, but Kale moved with ease, explaining the complex situation in simple words. The energy patterns are inconsistent, Kale said. It looks like sabotage rather than an accident. Someone tried to disrupt the palace's shields. If we do not act fast, the outer walls could fail, leaving the city vulnerable. Alara's heart pounded. Sabotage inside the palace? That meant danger was not just outside. It was within. She had always believed that knowledge and preparation could protect her. But now fear whispered in her mind. What if even your walls cannot save you? Kale noticed her hesitation. Princess, we need your guidance, he said softly. Your knowledge of the palace and its systems is invaluable. Will you help me locate the source of the disruption? Alara swallowed, nodding. She could not let fear control her. She followed Kel's lead as they moved through corridors filled with glowing panels, security drones hovering silently beside them. Despite the tension, she noticed how calm he remained. His presence seemed to absorb some of her worry, yet the fear inside her heart was not fully gone. They reached the central security hub. Kale immediately analyzed the energy signatures, tracing them to a series of malfunctioning drones hidden in a maintenance area. Someone has tampered with the drone's navigation systems, he explained. They were intended to protect the outer city, but now they could cause harm if left unchecked. Alara peered at the holographic display, her mind racing. We must disable them quickly, she said, her voice steady. I will guide you through the maintenance access points. Follow my instructions precisely. Together, they moved to the maintenance area, a narrow space filled with glowing cables and the hum of machinery. Kale worked with the technicians while Lara navigated the palace schematics in her mind. Their coordination was flawless, two leaders from different worlds, united by a shared goal. Suddenly, one of the drones activated unexpectedly, its lights flashing red. Alara froze for a moment, fear gripping her chest. She had seen drones malfunction before, but never so close, never with the possibility of danger. Kale noticed immediately. Princess, step back. He called calmly, moving in front of her to intercept the drone. With careful precision, he deactivated it using a handheld device. Alara watched, her chest tight. In that moment, she realized something she had never admitted before. She trusted him not blindly, but completely in that moment. He had acted to protect her, without hesitation, without questioning the risk. Once the immediate threat was neutralized, Kale turned to her. Are you all right? He asked, concern in his voice. Alara nodded, though her hands trembled slightly. I am, she said. Thank you. You acted quickly. Kale smiled faintly. I promised I would not let fear or danger harm you. The words struck her in a way she had not expected. She had built walls around her heart to protect herself from humans, from disappointment, and from love. Yet here was a human, a soldier, keeping that promise without any expectation of reward. She felt her walls shift, the foundation trembling slightly. The crisis was not yet over. The sabotage appeared deliberate, and the council feared it could be part of a larger plot against the royal family. Alara realized that the palace could no longer be a safe place if threats came from inside. And outside, she had always relied on her intellect, her guards, and her careful planning. But this situation required something more, trust in others. Kale approached her privately after the immediate threat was contained. Princess, he said quietly, you do not have to face this alone. Allow me to stand with you, not just as a soldier, but as someone who cares. Alara's heart skipped a beat. His words were simple, yet powerful. She had never allowed anyone to speak to her like this, not a minister, not an advisor, not even her family. And yet, here was a human, speaking honesty and care. For the first time, she wondered if she could let someone in. She began, hesitating. I am not used to this, to trusting someone completely, but I feel safer with you here. Kale nodded, understanding. Safety is built with action and trust. And sometimes, trust requires courage. Your courage is remarkable, Princess. Not because you face threats alone, but because you face them even when fear is inside you. The princess felt warmth spread through her chest, a sensation both unfamiliar and comforting. Her walls, which had been rigid for years, began to show small cracks. The fear that had controlled her life for so long seemed slightly weaker, replaced by something she could not yet name. Over the next few days, Alara observed Kale closely. He moved through the palace with quiet purpose, helping humans and Lyrians alike. Never seeking praise, never demanding attention. She noticed how he treated everyone with respect, from the palace cooks to the youngest guards. His actions were consistent, honest, and thoughtful. One afternoon, while walking through the palace gardens, Alara asked him, "Why do you do all of this? You could simply follow orders and leave. Why care so much?" Kale paused, looking at her with steady eyes. "Because I believe in people, not just humans, but all beings capable of choice. You have shown me kindness, patience, and intelligence. I act because I see that goodness deserves protection, no matter where it comes from." Alara was silent for a moment. No human had ever spoken to her with such sincerity. Her heart, long shielded by fear, trembled at the thought that perhaps humans could be trusted, perhaps even loved. Later that night, the princess could not sleep. She wandered through her chambers, her mind racing with thoughts of Kale, of trust, and of the dangers that surrounded them. The events of the past week had shaken her in ways she could not ignore. The sabotage, the drones, and Kale's bravery all combined to create a storm inside her heart. She realized that her walls had protected her from pain, yes, but they had also kept her from joy, from trust, from connection. She had feared love because it had always felt dangerous. But she now understood that fear alone could not dictate her life. There was strength in vulnerability, courage in trust, and beauty in allowing someone to stand beside her. The next morning, she found Kale in the gardens, tending to the plants with careful hands. She approached him quietly, her heart pounding. "Captain Kale," she said softly, "I want to thank you, not just for helping with the palace, but for showing me that trust can exist, even with humans." Kale looked up, his eyes gentle. "Princess, you have shown me the same. Your intelligence, patience, and courage are remarkable. Trust is a gift, and you have given it wisely." For the first time, Alara allowed herself to smile fully. It was not a guarded, polite smile. It was genuine, warm, and free. Her walls were no longer unbreakable, they were beginning to bend, to allow light and trust inside. That day, she realized something important. The storm within her heart was not a threat to fear, but a signal of change. Fear had kept her isolated, but now courage and trust were guiding her steps. Kale had not broken her walls with force, but with patience, sincerity, and unwavering care. As the twin suns set and the city below glowed with light, Alara stood beside Kale, watching the horizon. The future was uncertain. Threats still loomed, both inside and outside the palace. Yet, for the first time in many years, she felt hope, delicate, fragile, yet persistent. She understood that walls could protect, but they could also imprison. And sometimes, letting a trusted person inside was the bravest act of all. The princess had built walls to keep herself safe. But now, with Kale by her side, she began to understand that strength came not from isolation, but from connection. The storm within her was not a warning, it was a promise. A promise that the heart, when guided by courage and trust, could flourish even in the face of danger. And so, as the stars reflected in her silver hair, Alara allowed herself to take the first steps toward a future she had long feared. One where humans could be allies, friends, and perhaps even more. The walls had cracks now, and with every small act of trust, every shared moment of courage, those cracks grew just enough for light, hope, and perhaps love to enter. The morning sky over Lyria was darker than usual. Clouds of gray swirled across the twin suns, casting long shadows over the floating city. Alerts had begun echoing through the palace. signaling an approaching fleet from a neighboring star system. These were not friendly visitors. Scouts reported enormous ships, heavily armed and moving swiftly toward the planet. Panic rippled through the city. Citizens hurried to shelters, while drones hovered above to monitor the skies. Princess Alara stood on the balcony, her silver hair reflecting the dim sunlight. Her heart beat fast, not from fear alone, but from a deep sense of responsibility. The city was hers to protect, and she could not fail. The Council of Elders convened immediately, discussing strategies, defenses, and potential alliances. Yet Alara's mind kept returning to Captain Kale. Kale entered the room, calm but alert, his uniform immaculate despite the tension. "Princess," he said, bowing slightly, "the fleet is large, and they are not negotiating. We need to act quickly. I suggest combining human and Lyrian defenses. Together, we stand a chance." Alara nodded. "We will act together. I will lead the palace forces, and you coordinate with the human fleet." Her voice was steady, though inside, a storm of fear and doubt raged. She had always relied on Wall's careful planning, trusted guards, and distance from others. But now, the safety of her city depended on connection, cooperation, and trust. Preparations began immediately. Lyrian ships, sleek and glimmering, formed defensive formations around the floating city. Human ships, sturdier but slower, joined the lines. Kale moved among both fleets, coordinating strategies, encouraging crews, and ensuring that Lyrians and humans worked as one. Alara observed him closely. His leadership, calm in crisis, inspired confidence not just in humans, but in her people. That evening, the fleet arrived. Massive ships blocked the horizon, their metal hulls gleaming ominously under Lyria's twin suns. Citizens watched in awe and fear as the sky filled with vessels designed for war. Alara felt the walls around her heart tremble. She had never faced danger like this. The fear she had kept hidden for so long pressed against her chest, demanding control. Kale approached her, his presence steadying. "Princess," he said softly, "we are ready, but we must act now. Will you trust me to lead part of the defense alongside your forces?" Alara hesitated, her old fears rising. Trusting a human in battle could be dangerous. What if he fails? What if the city falls? But she looked at him, his eyes calm, focused, unwavering, and realized something she had not admitted before. She believed in him. "Yes," she said finally. "We act together." The first skirmish began as the alien ships opened fire. Energy beams streaked across the sky, and explosions lit up the horizon. Lyrian shields shimmered, deflecting most attacks, but the fleet was large, coordinated, and relentless. Alara directed the palace defenses, moving quickly from station to station, issuing orders with precision. Kale led human squads in the city streets, protecting civilians and organizing counterattacks. The princess and the captain moved like a synchronized team. Lyrians and humans alike followed their guidance, working in harmony despite differences in technology, culture, and experience. Alara felt her walls weakening further. In past battles, she had acted alone, relying on her intellect and guards. Now, she relied on others, and she saw the strength that came from connection. At a critical moment, a massive alien ship broke through the outer defenses, aiming directly at the city's central energy core. If it succeeded, the floating city would collapse, sending millions plummeting into the lower atmosphere. Panic erupted among the citizens, and even some seasoned guards faltered. Kale spotted the threat and shouted to Alara, "Princess, the energy core! I will take a squad to intercept. Cover the central defenses." Alara did not hesitate. She coordinated the palace shields, directing energy flows to reinforce the core. At the same time, she watched Kale lead his squad fearlessly toward the enemy ship. His movements were precise, confident, and brave, inspiring both humans and Lyrians to follow. Alara's heart raced. She had always feared losing control, but now she saw that courage and trust could accomplish what walls and distance never could. Her fear transformed into focus, and she acted with clarity she had never known before. The battle raged for hours. Ships clashed in the skies, energy beams streaked across the horizon. An explosion shook the floating city. Yet amidst the chaos, Alara noticed something remarkable. Her people, human and Lyrian alike, were united. They were fighting not as separate species, but as one. And Kale, a human, had become a symbol of that unity finally. Kale and his squad reached the alien ship. With coordinated attacks, they disabled its weapons and boarded the vessel. Alara watched through the holographic displays as the ship's systems shut down. The immediate threat to the energy core was gone. Relief washed over her, but there was no time to celebrate. The battle was still ongoing. Kale returned to the city streets, battered but unbroken. Alara ran to meet him, her worry finally breaking through the remaining walls around her heart. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Kale smiled, brushing off dust from his uniform. "I am fine, Princess. The important thing is that the city is safe." Her chest tightened, not from fear, but from a strange warmth she had not felt in years. The walls she had built to protect herself were crumbling not violently, but gently, revealing the possibility of connection, trust, and even care. As the battle continued, Alara and Kale moved together, coordinating defenses, rescuing civilians, and inspiring their people. They were no longer princess and soldier in the traditional sense. They were partners, each relying on the other's strengths, each guiding the people of Lyria with courage and wisdom. Hours later, the alien fleet began to retreat. Their ships, damaged and disorganized, withdrew into the dark expanse of space. The city was battered, but intact. Citizens cheered, drones hovered in celebration, and the palace floated proudly. A symbol of resilience, Alara stood beside Kale on the balcony, watching the horizon. Her silver hair shimmered in the fading light, and for the first time, she allowed herself to feel relief, pride, and something more, something that resembled hope. "You led well," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. I did not expect to trust so completely, but today I did." Kale bowed slightly, his expression gentle. "And you led brilliantly, Princess. You saw beyond fear, and you acted with courage. That is why the city survived." Alara felt her chest tighten with emotion. She had spent years building walls to keep herself safe, to avoid pain, to control every aspect of her life. Yet in the face of danger, she had learned that walls alone could not protect her people or her heart. Trust, collaboration, and courage had become stronger than fear. That night, as the city settled and the citizens celebrated, Alara walked through the gardens with Kale. The glowing plants reflected the soft lights of the city, and the air was filled with the scent of flowers and ozone from the battle. "Princess," Kale said quietly, "you acted not as a ruler who feared, but as a leader who trusted. That is rare. That is remarkable." Alara stopped and looked at him. "I felt fear, but it was different this time. I trusted you, and by trusting you, I trusted others. I realized that courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it." Kale smiled, stepping closer. "Exactly. And that courage, your courage, is why the walls that protected your heart can now allow light inside." The princess felt a warmth she could not ignore. For the first time in her life, she allowed herself to consider the possibility of more than trust, connection, and perhaps even love. Kale had not demanded her heart. He had simply stood beside her, proving that partnership and care could exist even across worlds. Alara realized that her walls had served a purpose. They had protected her when danger was near. But now, they were no longer necessary in the same way. The cracks that had appeared earlier were widening gently, allowing light, hope, and trust to flow in. And with every shared victory, every coordinated action, those walls crumbled further. As the night deepened, Alara stood with Kale, looking at the stars above Lyria. The city floated safely, its people unharmed, and its defenses stronger than ever. And in that moment, she understood a truth she had long avoided. Strength did not come from isolation, but from connection, trust, and courage shared with others. The princess had faced the storm, both outside and within, and she had emerged stronger. Her walls not broken by force, but by patience, bravery, and the unwavering care of a human who had shown her that trust and perhaps love could exist beyond fear. For the first time, Princess Alara allowed herself to hope not just for the safety of her kingdom, but for the possibility of something new, something delicate, something that could grow in her heart. The walls had fallen, and the light that entered was brighter than she had ever imagined. The morning air over Lyria was crisp, carrying the faint hum of city drones and the distant sparkle of the floating gardens. Though the alien fleet had retreated days ago, the palace remained on high alert. Princess Alara walked through the grand halls, her silver hair glinting in the soft sunlight, her mind heavy but determined. She had learned much over the past weeks about fear, trust, courage, and even the possibility of connection with humans. But today, the greatest challenge was not merely survival. It was to face the final threat that lingered on the horizon. Intelligence reports had detected the return of smaller alien strike ships, faster and more cunning than before. The fleet's remnants were regrouping, planning a surprise attack to overwhelm the city. This time, there was no warning, no time to prepare leisurely defenses. The threat was immediate. Kale entered the command room swiftly, his uniform showing signs of wear from the previous battles. He had been coordinating patrols and training Lyrian and human forces together for days. His calm eyes met Alara's, and in that glance, she found reassurance. They had grown from cautious allies to a team whose trust in one another was absolute. Princess, Kale said, bowing slightly, "We must act immediately. The fleet will strike in under an hour. If we delay, civilians and the palace could be at risk." Alara nodded. Her heart beat steadily now, not from fear, but from determination. "We act together," she said. "This time, no one fights alone." The palace erupted into motion. Lyrian and human pilots manned their ships, engineers reinforced shields, and citizens moved to safe zones under protective drones. Alara took her place at the main command station, her fingers moving across holographic panels, issuing precise orders. Kale coordinated with squads outside the palace, guiding units to intercept incoming threats. As the alien ships approached, Alara observed the horizon. The vessels glimmered with deadly intent, their metal hulls reflecting the light of Lyria's twin suns. She felt a surge of resolve. The palace was her responsibility, and she would protect it not from behind walls, but from beside those she trusted. Kale returned to her side. "Princess," he said, "some ships are aiming for the central energy hub. If they succeed, the city could collapse." Alara's mind raced. She could not let that happen. "We will redirect the shields to protect the hub. I will coordinate the defense from here. You lead the strike teams outside." The first wave of attacks hit. Energy beams streaked across the sky, and explosions rocked the floating city. Lyrian shields shimmered, absorbing much of the force, but some damage occurred. Alara's heart tightened not from fear, but from responsibility. Lives depended on her choices. Kale led human and Lyrian strike teams with precision and bravery. His movements were calculated, his decisions clear, and his presence inspired confidence in all who followed him. Alara observed him through the tactical displays, marveling at how effortlessly he earned the loyalty of those around him. She realized that courage and trust were more powerful than walls and isolation. Suddenly, an alien ship broke through the outer defenses, heading straight for the energy hub. Panic rippled through the city, but Alara remained focused. "Activate the secondary shields," she commanded, her voice firm. "Divert all energy to the hub." The palace responded instantly. Energy flowed through protective channels, glowing brilliantly as it reinforced the central hub. The alien ship fired, but the shields held. Sparks flew across the sky as beams collided with energy barriers, creating a dazzling display of light and power. Kale, observing the situation from the city streets, knew he had to act fast. "Princess, I will intercept the ship directly. Cover the hub fully." Alara hesitated for only a moment. She knew the risk, yet she trusted him completely. "Go," she said. "I will ensure the hub is safe." Kale's squad moved quickly, engaging the alien vessel with precision strikes. He boarded the ship, navigating through its corridors with agility and courage. He disabled its engines and weapons, ensuring it could no longer threaten the city. Alara monitored every step, her mind sharp, her focus unwavering. She realized that her fear had transformed into trust in Kale, trust in their people, and trust in herself. Hours passed in intense combat. The alien ships were relentless, but Lyrians and humans fought together seamlessly. Alara coordinated defenses, guided energy flows, and reassured citizens through her calm and clear leadership. Kale returned from the alien ship, guiding his squad back safely. Finally, the last of the alien vessels retreated. The city floated safely, its citizens unharmed, its defenses stronger than ever. Relief washed over Alara, but her heart was full of something more. She had faced fear, chaos, and uncertainty, and she had discovered strength not in walls, but in connection, trust, and courage shared with others. That evening, Alara walked through the palace gardens with Kale. The glowing plants reflected soft light, and the air carried the scent of victory and peace. The twin moons of Lyria rose, casting a silver glow over the city. "You are incredible," Alara said softly, her eyes meeting his. "I did not know if I could trust completely, but today I did. You made it possible." Kale smiled gently. "Princess, you acted with courage beyond measure. You trusted not because you had to, but because you chose to. That is what makes a true leader." Alara felt warmth spread through her chest. Her walls, which had protected her for so long, were gone. Kale had not forced them down. He had simply stood beside her, proving through action, care, and patience that trust and perhaps love could exist beyond fear. She paused, her hands brushing against the glowing petals of the plants. "I was afraid of love," she admitted quietly. "I built walls to protect myself. But now, I see that love is not weakness. It is courage. It is connection. It is strength." Kale stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. "And it is mutual, Princess. I respect you, admire you, and care for you. Your heart is not a wall to be broken, it is a light to be honored." For the first time, Alara allowed herself to respond fully. She took his hand, feeling the warmth of his presence. "I care for you too, Kale. I have been afraid, but you showed me that trust and love can exist without danger. You showed me courage I did not know I had." The stars reflected in their eyes as they stood together, side by side. The palace behind them floated safely, a symbol of resilience, unity, and the power of trust. The city below was alive with light, laughter, and hope. Alara knew that her journey had changed her. She had faced betrayal, fear, and danger, yet she emerged stronger. She had learned that walls, no matter how high, could not protect against the future. Only trust, courage, and connection could create real strength. Kale squeezed her hand gently. "We have faced storms together, Princess, and we have survived, not because of walls, but because of each other." Alara smiled, the warmth in her heart spreading fully. "Yes, together, we can face anything. And together, we will build a future where humans and Lyrians live in harmony, where trust and love are not feared, but celebrated." The twin moons rose higher, casting a gentle glow over the city. Alara and Kale stood together, watching the stars, their hearts open, their spirits strong. The walls of fear were gone. In their place were hope, trust, and the quiet promise of love. As the night deepened, Alara felt a sense of peace she had never known. She had faced her fears, allowed someone to stand beside her, and discovered that love and courage could coexist. The palace, the city, and her heart were safe, and for the first time, she allowed herself to dream of a future where both humans and Lyrians thrived together. Kale leaned closer, and their hands intertwined. "Princess," he said softly, "no matter what comes next, we face it together. Fear no longer controls us." Alara nodded, her heart full. "Together," she whispered. And in that moment, the princess who had once feared love now embraced it fully, knowing that courage, trust, and connection were stronger than any wall she could ever build. The stars above Lyria twinkled as if celebrating their union, and the city glowed with a light brighter than ever before. The princess had learned that true strength came not from isolation, but from letting someone in, standing together, and allowing love to flourish. And so, with the alien threat defeated and trust fully embraced, Princess Alara and Captain Kale stepped into the future hand in hand, ready to face the unknown, united in courage, hope, and love beyond fear. The walls were gone. The light remained, and the heart that had once feared love now beat freely, open, and strong.